The story of American political parties is one of evolution, conflict, and transformation. Imagine standing on the cobblestone streets of Philadelphia in the late 18th century, where the air is thick with the scent of revolution and the promise of a new nation. The Founding Fathers, those visionaries, were not just drafting a constitution. They were laying the groundwork for a system of governance that would inevitably give rise to political factions. It's fascinating to think that the very fabric of American democracy was woven with the threads of disagreement and ambition. Let's rewind a bit. The genesis of political parties in the United States can be traced back to the early days of the Republic. The Federalists, led by figures like Alexander Hamilton, championed a strong central government. They believed that a powerful federal authority was essential for maintaining order and fostering economic growth. On the other side of the coin were the Democratic Republicans, spearheaded by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, who argued for states' rights and a limited federal government. They feared that a strong central authority could lead to tyranny, echoing the very oppression they had fought against during the Revolutionary War. These early factions were not formal parties as we know them today, but they laid the groundwork for the first real political parties in America. By the 1820s, the Democratic Republicans had morphed into two distinct groups. One faction, which eventually became the Democratic Party, embraced the ideals of populism and agrarianism, appealing to the common man. The other faction, which would evolve into the Whig Party, represented more conservative interests and the burgeoning industrial economy. The Democratic Party, founded in the 1820s under the leadership of Andrew Jackson, emerged as a champion of the common man. Jackson's presidency marked a significant shift in American politics as he pushed for greater democracy and expanded suffrage. His appeal was rooted in his humble beginnings, and he positioned himself as a defender of the average citizen against the elite. This populist approach resonated with many, and the Democratic Party began to solidify its identity as the party of the people. But let's not forget the Whig Party. Formed in opposition to Jacksonian Democrats, the Whigs represented a coalition of interests, including former Federalists and anti-Jacksonian Democrats. They advocated for a strong legislative branch, internal improvements, and a more active role for the federal government in economic matters. However, the Whig Party struggled to maintain coherence, especially as the issue of slavery began to dominate American politics. As the nation expanded westward, the question of whether new territories would be free or slave states ignited fierce debates. The Compromise of 1850 attempted to address these tensions, but ultimately failed to provide a lasting solution. The Whig Party fractured under the strain of these divisions, leading to its demise in the early 1850s. Out of its ashes rose a new political force, the Republican Party. The Republican Party was founded in 1854, primarily as an anti-slavery party. It attracted a diverse coalition of former Whigs, Free Soilers, and abolitionists who were united in their opposition to the expansion of slavery into the territories. The party's first presidential candidate, John C. Fremont, ran in 1856, but it was Abraham Lincoln's election in 1860 that marked a pivotal moment in American history. Lincoln's victory not only solidified the Republican Party as a major political force, but also triggered the secession of southern states and the onset of the Civil War. As the war raged on, the Republican Party positioned itself as the party of emancipation, advocating for the end of slavery and promoting civil rights for African Americans. The passage of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments during this period reflected the party's commitment to these ideals. However, the post-war era brought its own challenges. Reconstruction efforts aimed at integrating formerly enslaved people into society faced fierce opposition, particularly from Southern Democrats who sought to maintain white supremacy and resist federal intervention. In the late 19th century, the political landscape began to shift once again. The Democratic Party, which had been associated with the South and its agrarian interests, started to transform in response to the changing dynamics of American society. The rise of industrialization and urbanization brought new challenges, and the Democrats began to appeal to urban workers and immigrants. This shift was not without conflict, as the party grappled with its identity and the legacy of the Civil War. The turn of the 20th century saw the emergence of progressivism, a movement that sought to address the excesses of industrial capitalism and promote social justice. Both major parties struggled to adapt to these new ideas. The Republican Party, under Theodore Roosevelt, embraced progressive reforms, advocating for antitrust legislation and labor rights. Meanwhile, the Democrats, led by Woodrow Wilson, sought to redefine their platform, focusing on issues like tariff reform and banking regulation. The Great Depression of the 1930s marked another seismic shift in American politics. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal coalition transformed the Democratic Party into a powerful advocate for government intervention in the economy. The party attracted a diverse coalition of labor unions, African Americans, and intellectuals who rallied around the promise of social welfare programs and economic recovery. This period solidified the Democrats as the party of the working class and the marginalized, while the Republicans began to position themselves as champions of free enterprise and limited government. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and we find ourselves in the midst of the civil rights movement. The Democratic Party faced a profound internal struggle over civil rights, with Northern Democrats advocating for racial equality while Southern Democrats, known as Dixiecrats, resisted these changes. The 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act were landmark achievements, but they also led to a significant realignment of political loyalties. Many Southern whites, disillusioned by the Democratic Party's embrace of civil rights, began to shift their allegiance to the Republican Party. This realignment would reshape the political landscape for decades to come. The late 20th century saw the rise of conservatism as a dominant force within the Republican Party, epitomized by figures like Ronald Reagan. Reagan's presidency marked a return to traditional values, a focus on individualism, and a skepticism of government intervention. The Republican Party became synonymous with fiscal conservatism, deregulation, and a strong national defense. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party continued to champion social justice, environmental protection, and healthcare reform, appealing to a diverse coalition of progressives, minorities, and urban voters. As we entered the 21st century, the political landscape continued to evolve. The election of Barack Obama in 2008 was a historic moment, as he became the first African-American president. His presidency symbolized a new era of hope and change, but it also exposed deep-seated divisions within the country. The backlash against Obama's policies, particularly from the Tea Party movement, signaled a resurgence of conservative populism within the Republican Party. The 2016 election marked another turning point, as Donald Trump's candidacy upended traditional norms and reshaped the Republican Party. Trump's populist rhetoric, emphasis on nationalism, and rejection of political correctness resonated with many voters who felt left behind by globalization and economic change. The Democratic Party, in response, faced its own challenges, grappling with issues of identity, representation, and the rise of progressive voices within its ranks. Today, we find ourselves in a deeply polarized political climate, where the divide between Democrats and Republicans seems wider than ever. Social media amplifies these divisions, creating echo chambers that reinforce our beliefs and exacerbate tensions. The issues at the forefront, climate change, healthcare, immigration, and social justice, are complex and multifaceted, yet they often become battlegrounds for partisan warfare. Reflecting on the journey of the Democratic and Republican parties, it's clear that their evolution is a testament to the dynamic nature of American democracy. Each party has adapted to the changing needs and values of the electorate, often in response to societal upheavals and historical events. The formation of these parties was not merely a reaction to political disagreements, it was a reflection of the diverse tapestry of American society. Today's political landscape is complex, And it's crucial to remember that political parties are not monolithic. Each party represents a spectrum of beliefs and ideologies. The Democratic Party ranges from moderate centrists to progressive reform advocates, while the Republican Party includes traditional conservatives, libertarians, and populists, each shaping their vision for the nation. Ultimately, politics is about people, their hopes, fears, and aspirations to build better communities and a stronger country. Engaging in the political process, whether through voting, activism, or raising our voices, requires dialogue and understanding. The evolving narratives of the Democratic and Republican parties remind us that we all play a part in shaping the future. By embracing complexity and fostering meaningful conversations, we can work toward a future that honors the diverse voices of our nation.